Good morning, boys and girls. Happy Tuesday. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at your assignments before we get started on our read aloud for the day. So my little quote that I have up here is just keep swimming, because I think we all need to remember that we can do it. Just keep going. We have a little bit more time, but I am so excited to see all of the challenges that you are taking on and everything that you are doing this week. I'm so proud of you all, and you should feel very accomplished. So just keep swimming. Let's do this. All right, so this morning, remember, those of you who are sharing your optional biography oral presentations, have that ready to go so that I can screen share it with you. If you are doing it live, have whatever you need ready for that. Today in reading, you are reading chapters 28 and 29 and completing slides 35 and 36. Please make sure that you are doing this in complete sentences and using proper grammar and capitalization. I've been going through these, and that is the biggest mistake that I'm seeing. Your answers are correct, which is great, but what's really important to me right now is not just that the answer is correct, but that you are writing in complete sentences and that names are capitalized, the start of a sentence is capitalized, all of those good things. So writing, today what you will do in writing is read the article that is focused on the landmark that you chose yesterday. So in Google Classroom, under classwork, I have put your Burlingame landmarks new activity. And on that, there are a list of questions on this Google document about your landmark. For example, what your landmark originally was. Okay, was it a train station and now it's something different? Was it a house? Okay, so a few questions about that. Okay, where exactly it is. So you're going to go ahead and read the article and then fill out the questions based on your research. Okay. Today in math, I am walking you through your Unit 11 math pretest. And so just like last time, I have uploaded this pretest under classwork under Math Unit 11 math pretest. So what you are going to do is print it out. You can either take the test and then go through my answers in the video, or you can go through it with me and then pause in the video whenever you need to. I do go quickly, otherwise you would be sitting there all day listening to me. So you are gonna have to use that pause button. For science, you are going to do the end of mystery assessment questions for lesson 4. And then you are going to do the magnet quick check that is up on Seesaw. So you can either go to Seesaw and find it, or you can just click right here and that should bring you directly to it. I have a video linked for your rhythm flashcards here for Mrs. Denoya's activity for you. And then it is National Donald Duck Day. So for art, there's a direct draw of how to draw Donald Duck. So some fun things for you today. All right, on that note, let's get started reading. We were in the middle of the chapter, which was the plan, and we left off where they were flying in the helicopter and as the giant was running to the land of, what was it called? Let me see. The land of Nod, I believe. So let's get going and see what happens. Every now and then, the pilots of the helicopters would catch a glimpse of a small girl wearing glasses crouching in the giant's right ear and waving to them. They always waved back. The pilots marveled at the giant's speed and at the way he leapt across wide rivers and over huge houses. They hadn't seen anything yet. Be careful to hang on tight, the BFG said. He's going fast as Fizzlecrump. The BFG changed into his famous top gear, and all at once it began to fly forward as though there were springs in his legs and rockets in his toes. He went skimming over the earth like some magical hop, skip, and jumper, with his feet hardly ever touching the ground. As usual, Sophie had to crouch low in the crevice of his ear to save herself from being swept clean away. The 9 pilots in their helicopters suddenly realized that they were being left behind. The giant was streaking ahead. They opened their throttles to full speed, and even then, they were only just able to keep up. In the leading machine, the head of the Air Force was sitting beside the pilot. He had a wonderful atlas on his knees, and he kept staring first at the atlas, then at the ground below, trying to figure out where they were going. Frantically, he turned the pages of the atlas. "Where the devil are we going?" he cried. "I haven't the foggiest idea," the pilot answered. "Queen's orders were to follow the giant, and that's exactly what I'm doing." The pilot was a young Air Force officer with a bushy mustache. He was very proud of his mustache. He was also quite fearless and he loved adventure. He thought this was a super adventure. It's fun going to new places, he said. New places, shouted the head of the Air Force. What the blaze do you mean, new places? This place you're flying over now isn't in the atlas, is it? The pilot said, grinning. You're right, it isn't in the atlas, cried the head of the Air Force. We've flown clear off the last page. I expect the old giant knows where he's going, the young pilot said. He's leading us to disaster, cried the head of the Air Force. He was shaking with fear. In the seat behind him sat the head of the army, who was even more terrified. You don't mean to tell me we've gone right out of the atlas, he cried, leaning forward to look. That's exactly what I'm telling you, cried the Air Force man. Look for yourself. Here's the very last map in the whole flaming atlas. We went off that over an hour ago. He turned the page. As in all atlases, there were 2 completely blank pages at the very end. So now we must be somewhere here, he said, putting his finger on one of the blank pages. Where's here? Cried the head of the army. The young pilot was still grinning broadly. He said to them, that's why they always put 2 blank pages at the back of an atlas. They're for new countries. You're meant to fill them in yourself. The head of the Air Force glanced down at the ground below. Just look at this godforsaken desert, he cried. All the trees are dead, and all the rocks are blue. The giant has stopped, the young pilot said. He's waving us down. The pilots throttled back the engines, and all 9 helicopters landed safely on the great yellow wastelands. Then each of them lowered a ramp from its belly. 9 jeeps, 1 from each helicopter, were driven down the ramps. Each jeep contained 6 soldiers and a vast quantity of thick rope and heavy chains. I don't see any giants, the head of the army said. The giants is all just out of sight over there, the BFG told him. But if you was taking these swashbuckling, noisy bellycopters any closer, all the giants is waking up at once, and then pop goes the weasel. So you want us to proceed by jeep? The head of the army said. Yes, the BFG said, but you must all be very, very hushy quiet. No roaring of motors, no shouting, no mucking about, no piggery-jokery. The BFG, with Sophie still in his ear, trotted forward, and the jeeps followed close behind. Suddenly, the most dreadful rumbling noise was heard by everyone. The head of the army went pea green in the face. Those are guns, he cried. There's a battle raging somewhere up ahead of us. Turn back, a lot of you. Let's get out of here. Pigs spiffle, the BFG said. Those noises are not guns. Of course they're guns, shouted the head of the army. I'm a military man, and I know a gun when I hear them. Turn back. Those is just the giants snorkeling in their sleep, the BFG said. I is a giant myself, and I know a giant snorkel when I is hearing one. You quite sure? The army man said anxiously. Positive, the BFG said. Proceed cautiously, the army man ordered. They all moved on. Then they saw them. Even at a distance, they were enough to scare the daylights out of the soldiers. But when they got close and saw what the giants really looked like, they began to sweat with fear. 9 fearsome, ugly, half-naked, 50-foot-long brutes lay sprawled over the ground in various grotesque attitudes of sleep, and the sound of their snoring was indeed like a gunfire at battle. The BFG raised a hand. The jeeps all stopped. The soldiers got out. What happens if one of them wakes up? Whispered the head of the army, his knees knocking together with fear. If any one of them is waking up, he will gobble you down before you can say jackknife, the BFG answered, grinning hugely. Me is the only one. That won't be gobbled up because giants is never eating giants. Me and Sophie is the only safe ones because I is hiding her if that happens. The head of the army took several paces to the rear. So did the head of the Air Force. They climbed rather quickly back into their jeep, ready to make a fast getaway if necessary. Go forward, men, the head of the army said. Go forward and do your duty bravely. The soldiers crept forward with their ropes and chains. All of them were trembling mightily. None dared speak a word. BFG, with Sophie now sitting on the palm of his hand, stood nearby watching the operation. To give the soldiers their due, they were extremely courageous. They were 6 well-trained, efficient men working on each giant, and within 10 minutes, 8 out of 9 giants became trussed up like chickens and were still snoring content. placidly. The ninth, who happened to be the flesh lump eater, was causing trouble for the soldiers because he was lying with his right arm tucked underneath his enormous body. It was impossible to tie his wrists and arms together without first getting the arm out from underneath him. Very, very cautiously, the 6 soldiers who were working on the flesh lump eater began to pull at the huge arm, trying to release it. The flesh lump eater opened his tiny piggy black eyes. "Which of you foul pesters is wiggling my arm? Is that you brought some man hunger?" Suddenly, he saw the soldiers. In a flash, he was sitting up. He looked around him. He saw more soldiers. With a roar, he leapt to his feet. The soldiers, petrified with fear, froze where they were. They had no weapons with them. The head of the army put his jeep into reverse. "Human beings," the flesh lump eater yelled. "What is all you flesh-bunking, rotten, half-baked beings doing in our country?" He made a grab at a soldier and swept him up in his hands. "I is having early suppers today," he shouted, holding the poor squirming soldier at arm's length and roaring with laughter. Sophie, standing on the palm of the BFG's hand, was watching horror-struck. "Do something," she cried. "Quick, before he eats him. Put that human being down," the BFG shouted. And again, this chapter is just the never-ending chapter, so we have to stop here. So I hope that poor soldier goes free. I'm wondering what you think. So maybe one of you can tell me what your prediction is when we go ahead and log on to office hours this morning. So that was a fun chapter. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I will see you to share our oral presentations for those of you who decided to take on that challenge this morning. Bye, everyone.